Seeing.
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 Seeing is believing.
How many examples of Black love are on a media platform of any kind?
Can you name one?
How hard did you have to think about one before it popped into your brain?
How many examples of Black leadership are on a media platform of any kind?
Can you name one? Now, can you name another?
How hard did you have to think about one before it popped into your brain?
This
is what brings us
to the reason we are here.
How many examples of Black wisdom are on a media platform of any kind?
Can you name one?
Now.
Can you name another?
Now.
Can you name one?
Where the wisdom is focused
on something other than pop culture?
Or hip hop?
Or battle rap?
Seeing is believing.
Blindness is the sickness.
Wisdom is the medicine.
We are restorers of faith.
Solutions over problems.
What needs to happen?
What needs to happen?
What needs to happen?
A lot of cats ask me if this story is true. It is.
Once upon a time in the days of low fades, I was on the block with Claude and my man Hayes. 199th Street between Jamaica Ave and the Hill. And I'm asking my brothers to chill, but they won't chill. They like money and hood fame. My man Hayes has on a big ass gold chain. Only problem is it isn't his. The chain belongs to his cousin who is deep in the drug biz. Hayes wants to take a ride, but for nothing more to take the chain on the ride like it's on tour. Now we're riding dirty in Claude's car, stunting and fronting like wannabe rock stars, with the windows down and the system turned up, bringing attention to ourselves, not giving a fuck, walking in spots, giving props and giving dap to grimy ass cats who sell crack where they rest at. Unwise. Being a follower will get you killed. Following against your will, going against your gut, following these nuts will get your ass stuck up. Yeah, being a follower will get you killed. Following against your will, listen to the voice inside, take it in stride, and you just might stay alive. I'm on the block paying attention to facial expressions, and each one says that they're gonna get them. The gold chain is looking like shark's bait. The shark's on the corner and man, they can't wait to catch your brother, slip him and trip him so they can flip him and tip him. Put him on the ground and have that strip.
Dudes and dudettes, the sexy and the not so sexy.
The poet and author Lamont Anthony Wright, aka Graffiti Bleu, has left the table, but he has not left the building. So know that he is with us as we continue this conversation from going from the point of fear being false evidence appearing real to fear being face everything and rise, beginning with your belief system. And I believe, Deanna, you asked the question of Phyllis, how do we make that transition? How do we get that into our brain, that concept is that simple? Tell me how we go from one to the other. So tell me what that feels like to you.
Every time I hear this concept of beliefs, and then when Phyllis goes into it a little bit deeper, sentence by sentence, it's just more simple and extraordinarily profound. And I'd prefer to hear it from you one more time.
Okay, so like we talked about earlier, the concept of belief, it really does drive who we are as people, because you have to start with that one thing in your mind, in your soul, in your heart, in your spirit that propels you forward to making the choices. And remember, choices and decisions, not the same thing.
Talk about that.
I always talk about that because I think people need to understand the difference between a choice and a decision.
Exactly.
So first, you do have to believe there is one. Mm-hmm. So believe first. Even if you don't think you have control over what the outcome will be, you still got to believe you can do it. Mm-hmm. Then you choose it. Choices are options. Mm-hmm. Only options. It's the decision that moves you to the action. Mm-hmm. So you believe first, then you choose. No one said all the choices are great, though.
This is true.
Some of the choices are shitty. Mm-hmm. Some of the choices are great. Sometimes it could only be all shitty. But you choose, though, which thing you can deal with the consequence of once you decide and take action.
Okay, now say that one more time, because that's where the deciding factor is in that choice,
Right.
in what empowers you in that moment. What?
Right.
Say that again.
So I do believe this. Choice is my superpower. Woo, the cake is flowing. See it with the big C on the back?
That's right. Yes.
So choice, right? So I believe that I have the power over anything in my existence. That source has given me the ability to choose.
Yes.
But it takes a conscious effort to do that. You have to be conscious about doing it. We're conditioned, though, to believe that we can't make choice consciously.
That's
That
right.
it is only rote because of tradition, right? Or repetition.
Right.
But really, you can change that at any point of your existence. It doesn't have to start when you're 2. You can change up when you're 82. Which we've seen people do, right?
do it.
We've seen people do. So you believe and then you choose. That is actually what happens. Even if you don't know it or believe it yet, if you pay attention to what you're doing, you will see, if you break it down, it's very simple steps, very simple process. I didn't say it was easy.
Right.
I said it was simple.
Right.
Everything simple ain't easy.
Right.
But if you consciously think about it, you are doing everything first from belief. Then you choose. Then you decide. Then you take action.
Yes.
And I think that a lot of what happens to people, and yeah, I'm generalizing on purpose,
Right.
is because when you see the outcome of the action that you take, which brings us back to personal responsibility, taking responsibility, you feel like all those steps that came before the action
Yes.
have nothing to do with you.
Yes.
Somebody else influenced that. Because we're conditioned to not take ownership, to not take accountability. Because if we did, that would mean that we're owning the power to choose.
Exactly. That's our power.
That's what that
That's
would mean.
the superpower.
And no one who wants to keep us in place, and I said that on purpose, no one who wants to keep us in place wants us to recognize that we have power.
That's
We have
right.
our own superpower.
Right. Everybody has it. And while I say, yep, I'm God's favorite, well, guess what? You God's
You
favorite.
too.
You God's
That's
favorite.
right.
But you got to believe that. You have to choose that. That's why we see people like Viktor Frankl who can survive being in a camp where they are purposely trying to kill people, to destroy them. You know what he said? I saw him speak once. He said, it was my choice. No one could take that one thing from me. Even as horrible as the existence I was placed in, destroying my will, starving me, being violent towards me, it still didn't take away my ability to choose how I responded to that. He believed. He says it all the time, or I should say, he has said it in his communications and conversations with people, that he believed that he could choose what his existence would be like, what his survival would look like or could
Wow.
look like, and he did survive.
Wow.
He did survive because he chose it. He didn't say it was easy.
Right. Right.
No one said it was easy. I didn't even say it was easy. It's not easy. Conscious choice is somewhat challenging, but could be so wonderful and
Rewarding.
empowering and rewarding. You can celebrate so much in your acceptance, because it does take that acceptance of a belief in choosing.
And do you believe that part of the conditioning to keep us isolated from each other is contrary to that isolation, or maybe I'm using the wrong word, that it takes for you to individually make your own choices? You know, there's a little bit of a
Hypnosis going on?
yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost like
Right?
I can't be isolated and make my own choices at the same time. You know?
I think people think that,
Yes.
but you can't be
But you-
isolated.
right,
We
yes,
are making
exactly,
our
because
choices.
all of us are making individual choices.
Right.
But the conditioning, the outside billions and billions of data coming in from doing this all day long is telling you that you can't do anything on your own. You
Right.
need me. You need this. You need that. You
Right.
need so many other things. And what you're boiling down to me is that before all of this, you still just need to believe in that simple concept that I have the power
Right.
to make
choose.
my own choice first on
Right.
where and what and who I am going to do.
Well, before the who and the what, and I want to speak from my own perspective here, is simply the believing the choice to choose.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I believe, am I even willing? Maybe I don't believe right now.
Right.
I'm just going to speak from my
Right.
personal, because for 2 years after being introduced to self-discovery or emotional intelligence, I did not know how, but I was willing to believe.
Right.
And for my conditioning, not knowing how was too big of an obstacle
Yeah.
to believe.
Exactly.
So I
Right.
couldn't believe,
Right.
but I was willing to believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that plagued me day in and day out, not
Right.
believing. I was actually frightened, and
Mm-hmm.
that I had been thinking I have been hypnotized.
Mm-hmm.
And for someone like me, I grew out of trauma. I am from
Right.
Sacramento, and I was raised in Oak Park, and there was martial law where you had to be in the house by 10 o'clock. And my father, the wisest man I've ever known, was also a paranoid, schizophrenic, bipolar, depressive. And he literally walked and talked through his illness, from shock therapy treatments to love me, love my kids, and all these voices. All these voices. So we literally were
Right.
trauma. This
Right.
trauma. And although there was a ton of laughter and food at every mealtime, there was also a ton of screaming, a ton of violence. I have seen blood. Blood's been splattered on me as
Right.
a child growing up. And I would say that many people in the hood, if you will, have experienced that. And our belief as we get older is that we're tough and we're strong. And, you know, many of us, tons of us, grew up to graduate high school, go to college, graduate college, become
Right.
what you would call
Make those
traditionally
choices.
successful,
Right,
get
right.
into corporate America, have children, get
Right.
married.
Exactly.
And on one hand, we love where we came from. That's our roots. That's what gave us strength.
Right.
On the other hand, we look at trauma or those who are traumatized as someone else, not us.
Right.
That's a belief.
Right. It is a belief.
And it's not until I started accepting my willingness to choose being out of my control. Like I have to take control back. That all of these memories are being able to identify with those who are traumatized. Actually, even became accessible.
Right.
It's not someone else's responsibility anymore.
Right.
That's
That's
just
the
one
ownership.
example of how chains are broken
Right.
when we are willing to believe. When
Right.
we're willing
Right.
to believe. It's so simple.
Very simple, yet so complex.
And it is that ownership and accountability that makes you want to open up and delve into this
Who you
discovery.
Right.
This self-discovery that you talk about, this emotional intelligence, you get that gut feeling that there's something inside you that needs to come out, and even though you don't know how. My father used to say to us when we were kids, there's two kinds of knowledge. There's the knowledge that you have, and there's the knowledge that you know where to go get it if you don't.
Right.
And the universe, community, God, source, whatever you want to call it, will start putting people in your path when you are ready to receive it.
Right.
We all know when the student is ready, the teacher
will
appears. But if the student is not ready, the teacher appears, the student doesn't get the lesson.
Right.
Rejects it.
Right.
It's totally sealed off. So
Right.
we have to have people that come into our lives at the time where we are
Ready.
willing
Right.
to open that door and just tiptoe into a new concept, a new
Right.
thought pattern, a new everything. And if you can open that door this much, watch out.
Right.
Watch out, because all of those decisions to come through that trauma, to come through that angst, that anxiety, that whole effort, to come through that and say, I still am going to rise. I still am whole. I still am going to grow up. I'm still going to be here. I'm still going to make the choices and decisions. I have the option to go to school, to learn, to be better, to start my own business. That pathway, that journey starts with that belief that I can.
The thing
Right.
is, I want to mention going, because you had introduced me to choice theory
Right.
recently, and I realized that when we were in high school, my crew, if you will, when we didn't think about the choices. We didn't.
Right.
We didn't.
Right.
Yes, shout out to Hiram Johnson, HJ baby. No year needed. But it was an impoverished neighborhood. Not
Right.
that all of us who went there were impoverished, but there
Right.
was fighting and there was smoking on campus back then, you know,
Right.
and different things. So we didn't know about the power of choice. When it
Right.
was time for SATs, you showed up on Saturday and did your
Exactly.
SATs. And then
Right.
when you got into college, that you showed up and went to college.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is that as we grew up, and I remember thinking all I want is to stop moving. I ended up having a child and wanted to just stop moving. That was a want. It wasn't necessarily a choice that I knew of.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And then also I wanted to be in leadership. I wanted to not
Right.
worry about where money came from on the
Right.
first of the month. I wanted to know that I could afford to retire. Not thinking about the choices in that.
Right.
But when the market crashed in 2008, I had no idea that my identity was wrapped up in my money.
Right.
And the crash of the market was also a crash to my identity.
Exactly. But
Right.
So if we have a choice theory, if we have access to a choice theory, then we have access to an elevation beyond the circumstance. This is the big
Always.
difference.
Always. That is the big difference.
And Graffiti mentioned that earlier when he said, when you are going to create one thing and somebody takes that,
Right.
you can create something else. There is
Exactly.
more to you than one thing.
Right.
There
Right.
is more to you than one thing. There is more to you than one way. And to get into these choice matters, to get into the power of belief, is to give you access to what is possible. And when he spoke earlier about that line of infinity, it gives you the power to realize that you are an infinite being.
Right.
You have the capacity to do all things.
Right.
You know, as I sit here behind the camera for a change and I listen to you ladies, and I'm so inspired by the dialogue without me being necessarily on camera. I think I want to close this particular episode on belief with just what you ladies' thoughts are on limits. What are your ladies' thoughts on limits? Because there really appears to be no limit. You only appear to be limited by yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Could you share with some of the people that are watching what you once thought were limits and what you know is not really a limit now? Deanna, what did you used to think was a limit, girl? Talk about it!
I thought money was a limit.
Okay, you thought, okay, gotcha. Okay.
I thought I was money motivated. I thought I was reduced to a limited number of choices by my financial situation. And then I made a lot of money. And I was still limited. I made a lot of money and I lost a lot of money. Anyway, I was planning to defer to whatever was going to be your answer, actually. But I also thought that I was limited by my place in the family. I come from a brown skin family, and my light bright self was put in a box a million times. So I was always proving that I was black, and always seeking the approval of my superhero. Like, I'm a superhero too.
Right.
And so, limitless experiences, I think when we start talking about belief and choice and how freeing that can be, that a lot of judgment comes with that, and expectation or perception that I haven't been through anything in life, or that I'm not grounded with the people anymore. And for a long time, I felt like I had to prove I'm in the trenches.
Right.
I don't have to prove I'm in the trenches. It's hilarious. It's hilarious thinking about that. So at this instance, really for me, freedom is who I associate myself with, starting with my own myself, and then the freedom of how I engage my time.
Right. I would say for me, I'm at a place in my existence where I don't see limits.
See?
I just don't. It doesn't mean that I didn't see limits before. I think I've seen limits at different parts of my development as a person. But because of what I constitute as a transcendence of my existence, because of the connection of belief and value and choice and decision making, I just really don't see any limits. But it's a choice that I made to believe that. And while it may appear as if nothing bothers me, I am happy all the time, but it's because I choose to be happy. To me, it is more satisfying, gratifying, enabling to feel joy and gratefulness or appreciation for that which I have been provided with. One being the fact that I'm alive. I appreciate that. So that's the thing that I'm happy about. I love being alive.
Yes, and living.
Right. I love living. And so I don't think that in what most people perceive as a limit, I just don't see it. I don't see it because I believe that there doesn't have to be a limit. Because the universe is expansive, existence is infinite. Even if physiologically I am no longer here, because I am part of the universe and that particular construct, that's my belief.
Yes.
It's fine if other people are not agreeing with me. That to me is not a limit for me. It
Yes.
just does not bother me. So I do not see limits any longer. But it's a belief and a choice.
It is really amazing to go through these kind of transitions because I spent most of my early life being told what to do.
Right.
And when you talk about that conditioning, I was middle child in a family of 3 daughters, and I came from both sides, both sets of parents were from large families. So their idea of community was that you had to stay together in all things. And I was the loner, but I was conditioned to have to do something with my sisters. I had to be with my sisters. I had to dress like my sisters. I had to go where my sisters went. I had to stay with the family because my parents' idea of success was keeping us safe and together. It wasn't until I started to grow in and out of that I realized that as the loner, I was designed to do something different. I was designed to buck the system. I was designed to test the waters. I was designed to make you want to beat my ass because I would not go along with the program naturally. And then I had to make that revelation that I am not like you. I don't want to be like you. I really want to be like me.
Right.
And so that power of belief and choice to uncondition my conditioning and recondition or reconnect to my natural self brought me into where I am now as a writer, because I got to tell the true story of who I am and how I see the world. And I see the world differently because of who I am. So I cannot take away what my parents gifted me with because they did the best that they knew how to do in the moment. They never treated me anything other than loving and caring and kind. But as a person, I am someone different. I have to be me. I have to discover that my power of choice, my superpower, is in my writing.
Right.
And I had to be alone to write.
Yes.
Wow.
And that's what I do best. And that's where I find my limitlessness.
Woo!
Right.
And that's a wrap.
Oh my goodness!
Goodness gracious.
Oh my goodness gracious! Oh,
Love you guys.
love you guys! Love you guys!